Hi Club Scrap card makers, this is Tricia at Club Scrap with the You've Got Mail card kit. I'm so excited to show you all the fun stuff we're going to make in this edition of our tutorial. So let's go ahead and get started by trimming apart our cut aparts. So by now I hope you have your kit, your cut aparts, your trimmer, maybe an accordion pocket file or some space to do some organizing, and then a copy of the instructions. Let's get started with our first and easiest cut apart. This is the one that has the little mailboxes on it, and just as a reminder to my new guests here that there are little registration marks on the print, and so that's your guide as to where you're going to be making all of your cuts. Basically, I'll put this into the trimmer vertically after I study this a bit with this post mailbox here in the upper left corner. Looks like my first cut will be at around 6.5 inches. And then I'll slide it down again all the way to 3.25. And then I'll rotate so that the post box is on my left, and I'll make 2 cuts to separate them. Now, by following my instruction document, there is a distribution map, and it shows a sketch of the cut apart we're trimming right now and exactly which card that'll be used on. So pretty much everything on this entire sheet is used in card set B. So I will trim every single piece from the sheet and file it in pocket B. That includes all of the scraps as well. Pocket B. Now I keep referencing these pockets, and again, that's the accordion pocket file. I use it for my scrapbooking and my card making. It just helps keep everything organized. Next, we'll grab this sheet here, and I'll begin by making some cuts on the with it horizontally positioned. So let's place this in the trimmer with the word thanks in the upper left corner, and we'll cut this into sections. Next, I'll rotate this piece so the smallest scrap is on the far right. All 4 of the rectangles you just made during this process, I'll go in pocket A or pile A, and we'll repeat for the next thing. Everything goes in pocket A. Then I'll trim the next piece with these 2 airmail letters. Both of these elements end up in pocket B. One last piece to trim. I'm going to do a little rotation here to make sure I'm following my cutting guides. Alright, these 2 go in pocket B. And then I have yet another strip here. I think I'll put that in B also. Lastly, we have a sheet that's a lot more white than the others, and I'll make a vertical cut. The words deepest sympathy will be in the upper left corner. Then I'll rotate. All of these light blue elements go in pocket C. I'll trim the smallest rectangle from the end first. All of these rectangles, pocket C. This piece has a little bit of a scrap on it. I'll remove that, and it just is a little narrow white piece. And then I'm going to trim this horizontally down to 5.5 inches. And I'll just file these in pocket C. These 2 pieces end up being the little flags on the mailboxes in card set B. For card set B, I need a whole ton of little rectangles of artwork. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is take this long strip that we filed in pocket B, and I want you to trim it down to 1.25. And then from this, I want to get a bunch of rectangles that are 7/8 inch wide, 1.25 long. So I'm going to start out by just subtracting 7/8 of an inch before I make each cut. I'm at 11. Then I'll just slide down to 10 and then add 1/8 of an inch. So I'm at 10 1/8. If you want, you can use a calculator. I'm going to go to 9 1/8 because that's where I was, an inch shorter than what I was, and then add 1/8. So now I'm at 9 1/4. And I'm going to go down to 8 1/4 and add 1/8. So 8 3/8. That's just how my mind works. Not sure about yours. I'm going to 7 3/8, add 1/8. That puts me at 7.5. 6 5/8. 5 3/4. 4 7/8. 4. 3 1/8. 2 1/4. 1 3/8, and then just 7/8. Now that to me is a lot easier than just continually putting in the same piece of paper at 7/8, but doing the subtraction makes it pretty easy, and now I have a total of 10, 11, 12. That's exactly the number of little postage stamp lookalikes that I needed. 12. Whew. All of those will go back in pocket B. There's another piece we need to trim from our cards, and that will be used in set A. So I need you to look for the 3 3/4 by 10 craft. There should be just one in your kit. We're going to make 4 panels out of it. So I need you to trim this horizontally at 7.5, 5, and 2.5. Take all of the rectangles and put them in pocket A. After all that trimming, now it's time to do some scoring. So exchange your trimmer for a score pal, and I want you to grab the Sky card bases. That's where we're going to start. These are 4 1/4 by 9 3/4, and we will score first at 2 1/8. So if you've got the score pal, you'll notice a little dot at 2 1/8. That is our first line. The other one is at 7 5/8. There is no dot there. So if you struggle with these 1/8 measurements, find 7.5. Go to the right one little notch. That puts you at 7 5/8. You repeat that scoring at 2 1/8 and 7 5/8 for the remaining 3 card bases. If you want, you can put all of that in card set A. And next we'll score the base for card set B. This is a 7 by 10 craft card base. And we'll score horizontally at 1/2 inch, 2 inches, 3.5 inches, and 5. Okay, one more time we'll repeat the scoring for the remaining 3 pieces at 1/2 inch, 2 inches, 3.5, and 5. All of this can be filed in card set B. B also uses some black panels scored as well. We do score horizontally, so you want the longest side of the panel in your score pal, and it should measure 5.5. Two lines here at 1/2 inch and 2 inches. And repeat that for all the panels at 1/2 inch and 2 inches. File those in B. One last card set to grab. Scoring this was optional, but I do like to score my card bases. Okay, score horizontally at 4.5 on the, oh, this is so pretty. I just love this cardstock we've selected. It's got this really beautiful yet subtle print that reminds me of like the back of a business check or the inside of an airmail envelope, a privacy panel. So pretty. All right, these go in pocket C for card set C. Now we have a few panels. This sky colored panel, C, and then the red ones go in A. And now I am all ready to go. I have no other paper around me as everything is scored and prepped. I just wanted to show you what happened after I took the contents of pocket A out of the pocket. I just kind of sorted everything out into piles, one pile for each card, and then I'll just select, this is the happy birthday with the snail mail envelope on it. It's just kind of a nice way to keep things in order. And then you can take all the other pieces and put this into the envelope that corresponds with the size card for when you go back and finish the rest of your cards. I really love this card structure. It's so much fun, and it's very, very easy to make. You'll notice we did what I would call a gate style fold, but what's weird about it is that the edges of the folds don't touch, and that's intentional. What we want to do is locate where our score line is, and then I'm going to take the corner of this and fold it to the score line. And I don't want to go past the score line because I want this card to be able to open and close easily. And just make a nice crease. And then I'll just rotate so this is comfortable for folding. And look, I've made a nice point right here. Then I'll just add a little dab of adhesive on each of those points and make sure they stay in place. And I'll repeat for the other side. Next, I'll take the red panel and center this onto the inside of the card base. And this is going to be on the side that has the folds. When I close this, it looks kind of like a really sweet envelope. Next, we want to prepare this outer decorative panel before we layer it onto the card. One of the things that I liked to do in this collection, because of its vintage quality, is take an earth ink pad and an ink applicator and simply ink the edge of this art element and ink the edge of the craft panel. Obviously, I'm making quick work of this, and if you want, you can even do that on the inside panel. It's totally up to you. All the cards in this set are assembled pretty much exactly the same way. Move forward. I will nest this onto the craft panel. And we found this adorable tricolored twine with the red, white, and blue that just kind of matches everything so perfectly. I'm just going to wrap this around twice. Up to you if you'd like to make a little bow. And for me, all of this sort of depends on whether or not I'm hand delivering a card or if I'm putting it in the mail, because I like to keep things very mailable without extra postage. There we go. Trim the tails. That looks really sweet. Okay, now I thought it was fun to maybe put this onto my card base at an angle. And to prepare this to be opened and closed easily, I took a pencil and I lightly mark the corner, the lower right corner of this card location. Then I'm going to open this. I'll take a grid ruler and a craft knife, and I'm going to lay this so that I'm connecting a little bit past where my mark has been indicated, and I'll just make a slit. Make sure you get at least through the top layer of the paper. Okay, so then after you have your slit in there, it'll be important for you to come through and erase your pencil marks. Next, take the lower right corner of your panel and once again place it into the card. And if you want, you can actually make a little pencil line, kind of maybe even underneath where the card would be, so that you can see exactly where to put adhesive on the other pointed flap. So then take the whole works and place it where you want it to be, and your card will still open. Ideal, right? Then take that inner greeting, and you want to make sure that if you apply the outside at an angle, you do the inside the same way so that it's not visible. And now that's a really, really cute envelope style card. For the others in the set, like here I did a single wrap around with a bow. Again, the same type of corner closure on the lower right. Here's the other variety, and I took a piece of this beautiful canvas ribbon we've included, and I stapled it on there in the upper right corner of these pieces with the, once again, the slit in the corner. I think the next card set is my absolute favorite. We've designed and adapted an A7 like pop-up box style, a standing box card, and I'm going to show you this one really quickly. So there are postage stamp stickers and little pieces of artwork here on the side. The card stands up, and it also ships flat for mailing, which is awesome. And you can just kind of see how the structure works here. And then there's a little slot in this cut apart, and then you can pull a tag out that we've made from the cut aparts and then added some folded ribbon on top. So I have a few tips to share with you, and we're just going to assemble the other one just like it. It has the same basic assembly style. This one even has the little moving mailbox flag. I just think this is so adorable. And of course there's another tag that slides out of here on the left. So let's get started with the basic card structure itself. I've got everything I need here, and we'll begin with our craft and black panels. So the first thing you'll want to do is just simply fold on all of the score lines, remembering that the bump of the score goes on the inside of that fold, and every single one gets folded kind of in the same direction. And then what that does is creates this box. This reminds me of merchandising for chapstick, right? The chapstick goes in here, like really big piece of chapstick. And this is kind of the starting point. This is what we're after, is this basic structure. And we want this little 1/2 inch flap glued to the back of the card. So you can kind of figure out if the card is flat, and that's where my 1/2 inch flap will be, you can then simply take some bookbinding glue or your favorite adhesive, apply it to the strip, and rather than trying to assemble this when it's in the shape of a square, you can push that down into its place while the card is flat. So much easier. With this more rigid paper, you're going to want to make sure you have good bonding time before you check the adhesion of the panel. And yes, I needed a little more bonding time. In fact, what I did initially when I made this batch of cards is I just put some binder clips on the edges until the paper adhered. Another really good adhesive for this project might be some score tape or some 1/4 inch ATG. Just use your favorite. Oh, and I've got a good bond now. And there's my square. That's what you're after, is a nice square that will also lay flat. Then the black panel, fold it the same way, and once again it makes a 1/2 inch tab. So there are 2 points of adhesion here. The first one, or whichever order you want, the edge of this panel lines up with the edge of the square on your card base, and then the 1/2 inch tab is adhered to the back of the card. So that is what we're after, okay? What is the best way to do this? Well, I've found that it does work quite well. Like if you really want to make sure it's centered and so forth, you can even put a ruler here, make sure the correct edge is exposed, and then glue that on. And you always just want to make sure that you don't put adhesive past this score line. So again, to review, make sure you're gluing it onto the front of the box, because this card can be flattened in a number of different ways. So just make sure you have it flattened correctly before you try to put adhesive in the appropriate area. So I will do that. Flatten it, center it, and make sure that this is lining up right with the edge at the correct measurement. In this case, it's 2.5 inches. Okay. Now I have one other piece to adhere. Where is this 1/2 inch flap going to be? It's going to be right there. Now when this is flat, notice the edge is right here. So I will put adhesive on my 1/2 inch flap and then close the card. And make sure I put pressure on that spot until it bonds. And now my card opens exactly the way it should. Okay, now we need to figure out how all of this is going to come together. The first thing I want to show you is this cute little flag setup we've got going here. So you can take a ruler and craft knife, you can take a scissors, and these need to be trimmed out. And now they're designed to be folded in half so that they are read on both sides. Okay, so you have this little piece, and all you need to really do is just fold it in half. Now, one of the things that I did when I folded mine was scored it first, because it is running a little against the grain, but that's all right. Now, once you get it folded in half, you can actually glue it or tape it together so that it's red on both sides, which is kind of what we're after here. So once you get that secured, just add a little bookbinding glue or your own favorite adhesive and hold it until it cures. And then, because my cutting was imperfect, you can even come back through with the scissors and just eliminate any more exposed areas that are still white. So to attach the flag, I'm going to use a brad from my stash. I've got a cork board right here, and just position this right here and then pierce through with a paper piercing tool. And we all have seemingly a ton of little tiny mini brads laying around, so I'll just insert that into the cut apart and then pull the ends apart on the back side. And lo and behold, I now have a little flag I can pull up and down, little interactive card. Now we want to make a line, a slit, right along the outside edge of this mailbox door. I'm going to start it right here. Oh, it cuts so nice. Okay. And just make my way down to the bottom. I'm not going to go all the way around it, just a little slit right there. Okay. Next thing we need to do is attach this to our card base, to the black panel, and it should fit perfectly. What's important to remember here is where to put adhesive, and I'm just going to have you do it on the very outside edges. Do not apply adhesive to the inner edges because we'll lose the ability to turn this into a pocket. I'm even putting adhesive on the far outer edge where the slit is, but just not past the slit. And we want that to be stuck down to the card base, but not the slit area. Next, we have this cute little envelope, and what I did, just to make it feel a little more authentic, is with scissors I trimmed around the outside edge, kind of allowing it to have some, you know, not perfectly straight edges. I think that is what makes it feel a little more authentic. And then, of course, to finish that off, I'll just take my little earth ink pad here and my ink applicator, and all this does is just kind of smooths out those cut edges. Lastly, to prepare this item, I'll make a little V cut, and as always my parallelogram shape. So you want two angles pointing inward so that when I fold this in half, it has a nice finished style to it. And then we'll just maybe put this here. I'll grab my mini stapler. And now you have something with which to grab onto when you want to pull this out. So for the first time installing this, just make sure you lift up along that slit that you cut. And then you also want to make sure you are getting behind that little brad. Better than having the brad all the way going through and then you can't slide anything into the pocket. But then you have got your nice little greeting on the inside. Now for this top ledge here, I decided to use some of our fun little postage stamp stickers. And we've included a full sheet of a dozen in your kit. And I thought it would be fun to just incorporate some of the artwork that we had left over from the cut-aparts onto this. But you could also, I mean, literally, sky's the limit. You could have stamped images on here, whatever you want to do. To decorate these stickers, but I just thought a little bit of artwork would be fun. So basically I inked the edges of those little I think they're 1 1/4 by 7/8. We had a good time cutting those, didn't we? But that's why they're sized the way they were, so they would fit right onto the sticker. So I'm just adhering those. And then I took a ruler again, and I just made sure that my first sticker was placed in the center. So I'll peel that one away. And you want it about 1/8 of an inch from the edge and centered for this to look, well, really nice. And then the rest you can kind of eyeball the placement of the remaining 2 stickers. How sweet is that? Now on the other vertical variety, it's constructed the exact same way. Just turn the card and it stands up really well on its own. And then I rounded the top corners of this tag piece with my corner chomper and finished it with a little bit of extra washi tape that I had in my stash. So those are all things that you can do if you have them. If you don't, it's not a big deal. Let's move on to the next card set. This is designed to be just a real soft monochromatic look for card set C, and we're starting with this gorgeous, just slight, I don't know if you can see that on camera at all, but this real slight pattern paper, and I'll just fold this in half. And I always like to mention that when you are scoring, even if your paper is scored, always make sure your corners are aligned before you make a final crease. Next, you'll have the sky blue panel, and a lot of the panel is visible on the card, so it's entirely up to you. If you happen to have an embossing folder. I used the Tim Holtz Alterations embossing folder. I'm not sure what the name of it is for some of my cards. And then this other, I think it's a passport cancellation or passport stamp from the Paper Studio. Anything like this. Anything with a texture, whatever's fun. Even just angled lines or chevrons would be perfect for this as well. But I just add a little interest to my sky panel. Then for the outside front of these horizontal cards, you see we have this double frame going on here. To add a little life and dimension to that, I'm just going to take my grid ruler and I'll place it against the outer line of the first frame, or the innermost frame. And I'm just going to go all the way around and remove this frame from the cut apart. Now at this point, the order of things is kind of important. So we'll begin by first putting the outside frame onto the sky panel. And I'll just do that with my ATG. I'll attach this at an angle. Next, I'll take a length of this really cool canvas ribbon and I'll just trim it so it's slightly wider than the card base itself, or slightly wider than the card panel. And I'll grab some tape. And what I'm looking for is for this to kind of go over the frame, kind of up into the tilted area a little bit. And then I'll tape the ends on the back. Next, I'll take a second piece of this ribbon, cut it in my usual shape, fold it in half, and then staple it, or you can use a brad, you know, whatever you're in the mood for. I'm going to staple to this element. That way the ribbon will go underneath it and this will be above it, and I'll do that at another angle. You can kind of study the best angle. When I attach this, I'm going to use our awesome foam adhesive circles. And if you really want to make them go a long way, you can cut them in half. What I love about these, again, if you don't have them, is the fact that they have these little pull tabs, because there's nothing more annoying than not being able to peel the backing off of one of these tabs. And then just place that on there. Watch for tangents. Finally, place this on the card base. And you know, with the reveal between the two panels that is so large, this is where I tend to grab my grid ruler and just make sure that I'm centered and level, because this is, if I'm going to mess something up, this is where it's going to be. I think the reveal is 3/8 of an inch. So just make sure it's going to be level. So I have my ruler ready. I'll apply adhesive to my panel. And when I place the panel, I'll make sure I got a 3/8 inch reveal on each side. Especially with those visually deceiving angles, it can definitely make me glue them, attach the panel crooked. Wow, there is that final card set. Now I'm going to show you the other flavors in that. So here's the original Sending Love card with the embossed background. You can see that it just really adds a lot. But of course it's optional. Either one works. Here again, just kept it really simple, neutral, didn't add any ink or anything, just left it. And instead of stapling ribbon here, I just tied a little piece of ribbon onto the ribbon that was already stretched across. For the vertical versions, I did the same exact thing. I used a craft knife to remove the postcard element from its frame, inked the edges, and attached it with foam adhesive. On the final variety, I went ahead and added a little bit of ink to the raised surfaces of the embossed panel, and I attached the frame. Then I remember when I had you cut this little strip to 5.5 inches way back when we were trimming our cut aparts, attached that and glued some of that twine on either side. You'll notice I just simply glued it and then I trimmed the ends to match the length of the strip so I wouldn't have to wrap it around to the back, thus adding a little bit too much dimension. And then the other two elements were added, the happy birthday and the postcard were added to this with foam adhesive. I was also careful not to put adhesive on top of the twine. Of course, then you'll add your inner greeting. And if you're ever wondering what in the world I put on the inside of the card, on the instructions for every card image, it will tell you right next to the image of the card which cut apart went on the inside. I hope you had fun making cards with me today. I'm going to go and clean up this mess, and I'll see you next time.